All right, it's the Friday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I call it the Friday edition, but really it's a game day edition. This is finally here. Pitt's first round NCAA tournament field of 64 game against Iowa State, tentatively scheduled to tip off at 3:10 p.m. this afternoon. We'll hope it hits that mark. We know these things are often a little bit movable, but one way or the other, no matter what time it starts, Pitt's got an NCAA tournament game this afternoon. Now, they played an NCAA tournament game on Tuesday night. And while I'll still maintain, as I did, that counted as an NCAA tournament game and an NCAA tournament win, it was also a playing game. And it was on Tuesday night. It wasn't a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday game. This is the real deal. This is where you make your real moves. This is where you advance in the NCAA tournament bracket. And it starts with an opportunity against Iowa State this afternoon in Greensboro, North Carolina, a place that Pitt knows. They've been there as recently as last week. They've won a game there as recently last week. And now they'll have a chance against the Cyclones from the Big 12. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Subscribe button is right down there where I just pointed. Click that thing and turn on your notifications so you'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we post a new video here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. These Morning Pitt videos like I'm doing right now. Some of our coverage from Pitt spring football. We've got video up of the quarterbacks and the receivers. We've got video up of the linebackers or safeties. We've got video up of some of the running backs and tight ends. I mean, we're all video after every practice, and we put it right there at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And most notably, the reason you most want to turn on notifications here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is so when we go live, when we have a live show like we did on Wednesday night with our regularly scheduled Wednesday night 8:30 show, or like we did Tuesday night, and like we'll do later this afternoon when we go live for a Panther-Lair post-game show. Now, like I said, we don't know exactly what time the Pitt-Iowa State game will start. It's scheduled for 3:10. I hope it starts at 3:10. It might not start until 3:30, depending on how long other games go and TV and all these different things. So we don't know exactly what time the post-game show will start. It'll start after the game and as soon after the game as possible. But if you want to make sure you don't miss it, click subscribe and turn on your notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone. It'll say, hey, Panther-Lair is going live with the Panther-Lair post-game show to talk about Pitt's game against Iowa State. So if you want to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on your notifications. So this game, I mean, there's a lot to say about this game. But there's also a part of me that's thinking, boy, it's been a really long time since we've been gearing up for a Pitt NCAA tournament game. I was thinking about it even with filling out the brackets. And this is my blank bracket. This is not my real bracket. My real bracket has been filled out and submitted. For some reason, I just had a blank bracket sitting here. The only thing I've done is I circled Pitt because Pitt beat Mississippi State. So they were officially on the line as the 11 seed there in the Midwest region. But as I was filling out the bracket and reminding myself, I was going through it, what night was that? Wednesday night. With my kids, you know, I'm filling out my bracket. They're filling out theirs. They're criticizing my picks. They're only like 8 and 10 years old, but they've already learned how you talk trash on other people's picks. Dad, how could you pick them? Really? What are you picking them? I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't even name what conference this team is from. But it was great. And as we're going through it, I'm like, what do you guys think about Pitt? What are you gonna do with Pitt here? Are you gonna pick Pitt in this thing? And my kids, and I swear I haven't indoctrinated them at all, but when we got to the A&M Penn State game, they all they all won A&M. They said, no, we wouldn't pick Penn State. I swear I didn't tell them to do that. But anyway, as we're going through the bracket and we're talking about it, it's that old familiar feeling of what do you do with Pitt? You've watched Pitt for 34 games. You've watched Pitt more than you've watched any other team in the country this year. And so you know them. You know them at their best, and you know them at their worst. You know what they're capable of, and you know that when they play at their best, boy, they can just beat anybody. And that was always the case in 2003 and 2008 and 2000, you know, so on and so forth. And so you probably talk yourself into taking them one step further than you should. Now, personally, and not to give it up here before we even get started, I have them winning this game today. I have them losing to Xavier on Sunday, but I have them winning this game today on my bracket. I think a lot of people probably do too. At least two presidents have it that way. Barack Obama had Pitt going, and Obama might have had Pitt beating Xavier. I forget. Actually, but I think Joe Biden also had. Well, Joe Biden had the Pitt, Mississippi State team beating Iowa State. So I don't know if that's like a combined squad of Pitt and Mississippi State, or if he just really doesn't believe in the Cyclones, which would be understandable given their lack of offense. And that's really as we get into the heart of this matchup. This is what we're talking about. It's another team, kind of like Mississippi State, a team in Iowa State that is very defensive minded and defense oriented, and not a great scoring offense. They're near the bottom of the Big 12 in points per game, but they're at the top of the conference in points allowed per game. They did an effective job against Baylor, and beat Baylor 3 times, including in the Big 12 tournament, and did a pretty good job defending them in all those games. And we'll talk about that matchup in a second and how there might be some similarities with Pitt. But this is a good defensive team that doesn't score a lot. And so I think right off the bat, the first question you ask as a Pitt fan, or anybody who's watching this game, is how far can you get in the tournament playing that way? Now, I feel like there was always a feeling that Pitt couldn't make it past the Sweet 16 because they relied too much on defense and rebounding, and they weren't a good enough offensive team. If that's the case, and that logic applies to Iowa State, then they're going to win this game and beat Xavier on Sunday, presumably, and move on to the Sweet 16. We'll find out. We'll see if that comes to pass. But it's interesting to see this matchup, particularly because Pitt just played a game like this. When they played Mississippi State, it was a very strong defensive team and a team that couldn't score a whole lot. And I was reminded, particularly as I was watching the Virginia-Furman game yesterday, I was reminded of Pitt playing against Virginia earlier this season, and reminded of Pitt struggling against that defense, but eventually cracking it. And I'm not saying that Virginia cracked or Virginia broke, but Pitt cracked the defense and eventually was able to get its points against that defense. And I think if I have a certain amount of confidence with Pitt heading into this game this afternoon, it's based on that idea that this offense will eventually break through, that these guards, particularly Jamarius Burton and Nelly Cummings and Nike Sabandi, will eventually break through against Mississippi State's defense. They force a lot of turnovers, which is a big part of their defense, but you're going against 3 5th and 6th year senior guards who presumably should be able to do a good job controlling the basketball and taking care of the basketball. They did that against Mississippi State. Mississippi State was another team that forced a lot of turnovers. Pitt only had 7 in that game and only 2 in the first half. They need that kind of performance today to keep themselves ahead of Iowa State. It's really going to come down to protecting the ball and making threes. I think for as good as Iowa State has been defensively, they haven't been great at the threes, at defending threes. They're, I think, next to last in the Big 12 in three-point field goal percentage defense. And what's particularly interesting is how they play against, or how they played against Baylor. Because Baylor is sort of similar by the numbers to Pitt in terms of three-point shooting. They've attempted and made the most three-point shots in the Big 12. Pitt's right up there at the top of the ACC. The numbers are pretty similar. Both teams have made more than 300 threes this year. And I think there are comparisons to be made there. So I was looking at how Iowa State did against Baylor, defending the three in those 3 wins. And the first game they played, it was played in Ames, on Iowa State's home court, and they held Baylor to 5 of 22 from 3. Not a very good night that night. The regular season finale was played in Waco, and Baylor shot 10 of 28. So much better in that game. And then the Big 12 tournament game, which Iowa State ultimately won, Baylor shot 14 of 29 from outside, 48%. So they continually got better. They did a better and better job at attacking Iowa State's three-point defense. If you look at all 3 games together, Baylor shot 36.7% from 3 against Iowa State. That's not that great. In the last 2 games, Baylor-Iowa State games, which were the regular season finale and the first game of the Big 12 tournament, Baylor shot 42.1% from 3. So that's much better. And then in this last game, 48.3% from 3. So, you saw sort of a steady improvement, and I think there are probably going to be things Jeff Capel is going to be able to look at, particularly in those last two games, at how Baylor was able to get threes and have success from beyond the arc, and try to duplicate some of that, replicate some of that. Iowa State's opponents this season are shooting 33.8% from three, averaging about 7.7 makes per game on 22.8 attempts. Pitt this season is 36.2%, so about 2% better than 2.4% better than what Iowa State's allowing. And they're averaging about 1.5 threes made per game more than what Iowa State has allowed so far this season. It's really going to come down to, like I said, if there are holes in Iowa State's three-point defense, Pitt's going to have to be able to take advantage of those. I think it's going to be another game where it's maybe tough to get things inside, where the way Iowa State defends is probably going to be keyed on stopping the drives and the dribble penetration, which is so much of where Pitt's offense comes from. But if they really hone in and try to stop that, if they want to concentrate on that and focus on slowing down Jamarius Burton and Nelly Cummings and Nike Sabandi from driving into the lane, then I think you're going to have opportunities outside. I think you're going to have guys you can kick out to, Blake Hinson and Greg Elliott, who should have opportunities to knock down shots. And if that happens, and if you're able to get that early, you're going to force Iowa State to adjust how they're defending, inside the arc and outside the arc. And once they do that, I think you're going to be able to get away with even more from Burton and Cummings. I think Jamarius Burton's going to be really hungry in this game too. After only playing 19 minutes against Mississippi State with the foul trouble, I think he's going to be careful. A couple of those 4 fouls that he picked up, I think at least 2 were offensive fouls. So I think he's going to be careful about that, be a little smarter and more under control, but also want to make an impact. He made the game winner, but he probably feels like he could have made even more of an impact on the game if he had been able to stay on the court. Well, now I think that's going to be his goal today, is staying on the court and making a big impact. I think Nelly Cummings showed that he's ready to play at this level in the NCAA tournament. He finally won a game. He has been there a few times, and he finally got a win, and he's able to advance for the first time in his career. I think he's ready to go. I think Nike Sabandi, all the storylines surrounding him heading up to this season, or throughout the season, where they talk about what he had been through over the last couple of years and how hard he worked to get to this point and how he's embracing his role. I think he carries all of that emotion and motivation in. And then, I think Blake Hinson's got his own world of motivation for playing against Iowa State. I still, I'll look back. His separation from Iowa State came, I want to say it was like October of 2021. So it was before the season really even started. And their coach, I think, said in a statement, basically, I think he used the word quit. That Blake informed us he was quitting the team. And whether that's true or not, and I don't have a reason to believe that it's not accurate, I can't remember ever seeing a coach use that word to describe a player. Even if there is bad blood or hard feelings, I haven't seen that word used, quit. And so I have to think Blake Hinson knows that that's how Iowa State views it and how Iowa State presented it. And I think he's going to have a little bit of extra motivation himself. And I think these guys, these players we're talking about, Sabandi, Burton, Cummings, Hinson, even Greg Elliott, I think it's good for them to have a chip on their shoulder. I don't think they're the type who are going to get out of control and cost their team the game because they're so motivated by making up for it themselves. I think they have a chip on their shoulders individually and as a team. And I think, kind of what Jeff Capel has said all season about these players believing that they'll get the individual glory if the team succeeds, that if the team gets glory, it'll trickle down and it'll become individual glory. I think that has motivated these players. I think it's been their mindset throughout the season. And I think it'll continue to be their mindset in this game today. And if they play another game after that, I think it'll be their mindset there that, that individual glory is there for you if your team wins. And the best way for the team to win may be you making a big play, and it might be somebody else making a big play. So you need to do what you can to get everyone involved and keep everyone, find your best ways to win. Like I say, protect the basketball, make threes. I think those are the biggest keys. Iowa State's probably going to win the rebounding battle again, just like Mississippi State did, just like every team is going to. I think you should go into every game expecting Pitt to get out rebounded. Not that Pitt should accept that. They should work very hard on rebounding, but I think that's probably a reasonable expectation, that they're probably going to get out rebounded in every game. And so don't go into it expecting to win the rebounding battle here. Go into it looking to do what they did against Mississippi State, which is when they gave up offensive rebounds, don't give up the easy second chance points. Defend those extended possessions as hard as you can. You'd like to get the defensive rebound and not give them a fresh shot clock. But if you do give up the offensive rebound, do everything you can to make sure it's not an easy opportunity for a second chance point, because it's often what it is, and I think when you saw some of the teams like Miami and Duke that were able to really pile up the offensive rebounds against Pitt, they were able to convert them into easy baskets that made a huge impact in those games. I mean, Duke, they got blown out in the ACC tournament. They got blown out in the second half of the regular season game, but the Miami game was a close game. It comes down to a 2-point game, and they lose after giving up like 25 second chance points. You can't give up 25 second chance points. You might give up a bunch of offensive rebounds. What they give up to Mississippi State, 14 or 18 or something like that, but I think only like 5 second chance points. You have to keep those numbers down. You can't let that, or it might have been more than, it might have been 5 in the second half. I said that, and that sounds a bit ridiculous. I have it right here. 13. They gave up 13 second chance points to Mississippi State on 18 offensive rebounds. Second half, they gave up 8 offensive rebounds and just 5 second chance points. That's what you need to do against Iowa State. You're going to give up those offensive rebounds. You're going to give up rebounds overall. You can't let them turn into easy points. And I think sometimes with the defensive rebounds, when you see those guys, when you see Pitt like backing off and start backtracking toward the front court, as opposed to all 5 guys crashing the boards, I think it's because they want to get out and defend well in transition and force the other team to slow down and have to stop and try and run a set offense, as opposed to getting an easy basket in transition off the defensive rebound. I think that's a lot of times why you see that, particularly off the 3-pointers, which tend to have long rebounds and can be almost like an outlet pass sometimes for the other team to start their transition or fast break attack. And so I think that's a sound tactical move. And it's sort of accepting that you're going to get out rebounded. That's part of the whole thing. It's sort of an acceptance of, yep, probably not going to win the rebounding battle here. So what can you do to minimize the damage? And I think that's been their approach. I think it's been an approach that they developed and eased into over the course of the season. They need to have that approach today. Take care of the basketball, hit your threes, shoot a lot of them and make a lot of them. If the defense starts to really crowd the 3-point line and try and take those things away, then Burton and Cummings have to get going, and Sabandi have to get going with driving inside. I don't think Federico, I don't know if you make Federico or Guillermo Diaz-Graham. I don't know if you make those guys an emphasis of the offense. I think the points that you get from those guys, you mostly are looking for on second chance, putbacks, offensive rebounds, that kind of thing. You're going to win this game with Cummings, with Burton, with Sabandi, and with the outside shooting of Hinson and Elliott, plus Sabandi and Cummings. And I think they'll do it. I really do. I think this team has been a good 3-point shooting team all season. I think they've handled good defensive teams. The only one that they really, if you think about the best defensive teams that Pitt faced this season, the only ones that they really got smacked by, it was Duke. And Duke smacked them because they played great defense and they could also score. Virginia's not a great offensive team. Mississippi State was not a great offensive team. Iowa State is not a great offensive team. Pitt can hang with these good defensive teams that can't score a lot. And they can, often, when you think about the games that I just mentioned, Virginia, Mississippi State, Iowa State, they're able to keep fighting against that good defense and ultimately get a couple extra baskets to win. And, the Virginia game was a 1-possession game. The Mississippi State game was a 1-possession game. I expect this one to be the same. And I think it'll come down to somebody like Jamarius Burton making a big basket to win it. Yesterday on the Morning Pitt, I talked about all the different guys who have made big baskets late in the game for Pitt. And I think it'll be Burton again. Or maybe it'll be Cummings, or it'll be Hinson. I think these guys will come up and make a play. But those are the keys. Keep the turnovers down, fire away from three, let your senior guards be heroes. And I think they will be. And I think we'll be talking about Pitt on Sunday. Listen, when this game ends today, get over here to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the Panther-Lair postgame show. Win or lose, we're going to have a lot to talk about. That's true. It's not going to be boring. Whatever it is, it's not going to be boring. Whether the outcome is a blowout win, a blowout loss, or one possession, either way, we're going to have a lot to talk about. So make sure you tune in, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You want to make sure you don't miss it, so subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on your notifications. You can get alerts sent to your phone whenever we go live. So like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate it. And I appreciate you checking out the video this week. I appreciate you checking out all the videos this week. We had 5 morning pits, 2 live streams, a bunch of video from spring football. We had press conference videos from basketball. I mean, we had a lot of stuff here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and I appreciate you guys looking at it every day for sure. So thank you. I hope you've had a great week. I know you enjoyed Tuesday night. I hope this afternoon goes as well for you as that one did. But either way, we will be here talking about it after the game, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the game today, this afternoon. And we'll talk to you, I don't know. Depends on what time you're watching this, but we'll talk to you in about 8 hours or so right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.